Hello, everybody. This is William Del Pilar, and this is Fired Up California, where this conservative Latino brings you all the truths, ugly or not. Tonight, Kamala's out, and the race just detonated. Her exit from the 2026 governor's race didn't just clear the field, it exposed the vacuum of leadership in the scramble for narrative control within the Democrat Party in California. The truth is, California, as we all know, is no longer a beacon of American greatness. It's a warning light. Right now, there's no heir apparent, and every faction is jockeying for relevance. And the Democrat California political machine is not in a free fall, but it's at crossroads. That said, to me, it's the greatest opportunity since actor turned Republican turned climate leftist and betrayer and never truly conservative Arnold Schwarzenegger. Despite that, in terms of this being the best shot we've had as conservatives and Republicans, it's still a long shot. But sadly, our human nature dictates we never give up and get beat on repeatedly. So that's the main story tonight. Then I'll move on to my Cali Blitz. And that's the Fired Up California's version of a lightning round. Today, we're going to talk Trump versus California, California versus Trump, the lawsuits, ICE raids, failed recalls, NPR and PBS potential doom, voter fraud, and more. But before we begin, do not forget to bookmark grumblingsmedia.com and follow us on YouTube, Rumble, and Apple and Spotify under the handle Grumblings Media. So let's get down to it. This isn't just a gubernatorial race, it's California's audition for 2028, and I will explain what I mean. It's the Democrats' audition for 2028. Kamala's exit detonates the field, blows it up, meaning everybody who's anybody's going to try to get in. So let's walk that through, or talk that through, I guess. So with Harris out, does it really matter? Well, July 30th, she announced she will not run for governor. I have given serious thought, but after deep reflection, I've decided that I will not run for governor in this election. She's pivoting, in my belief, to a 2028 national strategy where she sets herself up for a presidential run. However, she's stating she's going to refocus on electing Democrats nationwide, which is ironic because I've read Democrats, or I've been told Democrats here in California, some of them don't want her to come to their district. She had a 24% lead in the July UC Irvine poll, but post 2024, that Trump loss, her net minus 11% favorability expose a serious weakness. Some of the critics don't like the fact that she evaded Biden's fitness questions. She has a very thin legislative record, extremely poor at messaging, and she's got a career that is built on transactional alliances, aka C. Willie Brown. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Y'all hear? Steve Hilton, one of the Republican candidates, stated, quote, barely anyone less representative of change. And that's true. She'll maintain the status quo. She'll do what her donor masters wanted her to do. In a nutshell. Now, the problem with Kamala also is she skipped key California events. She failed to court labor, which is incredibly important to do in the Democrat Party. And her exit lifts the donor freeze. But for her brand is still brittle. So now donors are free to go donate to whoever they want to. Kamala put a wrench in that. Who do we get? We got to. She's right now one of the faces of the party. Her name recognition can get her elected, whether they like her or not. Now that she's not in a race, that's wide open. So let's talk about the Democrat field. Who is standing with Harris gone? Who holds donor gravity, and who's just renting relevance? Us conservatives. There's a lot of us who rent relevance when we run because we have no money. So Katie Porter, former Congresswoman, progressive firebrand, she has raised $3 million since 2025, $2 million in cash on hand, $250,000 in 36 hours post Harris. Once Harris said she was out, she raised $250,000. Now, keeping things relative to the California race and its early stages now that Harris is out, that's deemed as pretty good. And some people even consider her a digital juggernaut. Porter leads with a momentum, fast cash, broad progressive buzz, and she's got digital visibility. Then there is, let me pronounce this right, Eleni Kounalakis. She is a current lieutenant governor, former U.S. ambassador. She has $9 million cash carryover, 70,000 in new large donations, and she's backed by Pelosi, Nancy Pelosi, and Barbara Boxer. Nancy Pelosi being a congresswoman right now, and Barbara Boxer, an ex-retired United States senator. The fact she was an ambassador would lead you to assume she is connected financially, because those ambassadorships go to donors, big-time donors, and people of that nature. So Kounalakis leads the institutional lane, meaning the swamp, the establishment. She's got legacy endorsements, and she has old guard donor gravity. And then there's Xavier Becerra. He is currently former HHS secretary and ex-California AG. He's raised $2.4 million. He'll be a force because of his name recognition and the fact he was the HHS secretary. But he'll be a force. $2.4 million raised, $2 million on hand. His brand is built on the Biden tenure. Then there's Tony Atkins, former Senate President pro temp. He's raised nearly $400,000. He's got about 16 legislative endorsements, and endorsements from no names do not matter. Then there is my favorite, I'm lying, my favorite Latino, Antonio Villaraigosa. I love saying that. Antonio Villaraigosa. His real name's Tony Villa. He changed it to Villaraigosa because it sounds more Latino. Former mayor of L.A. He's pulled in $1 million, strong name ID in LA. But as we learned some cycles past, he has a regional ceiling. He's what you call an old school Democrat. And as far progressive as we've gone, his time is likely over. But who can tell? We've been shifting more to the middle, even in California. Well, from the far, far left, we've shifted a little bit more. So we'll find out. Then there's Tony Thurmond, state superintendent of public instruction. He won the union straw poll. That makes sense considering he's the state superintendent of public instruction. And so there is labor interest, but he's really a non-factor. Then there's Betty Yee, former state controller and party vice chair, minimal fundraising. And there's more than likely a post-Kamala fade. Everyone else, they're still defining their coalitions, but no one's cracked statewide traction yet. And now the power brokers in the Democrat Party, obviously Kamala Harris, no endorsement, but the Bay donor map is still potent, meaning her machine here from when she did run last time is still there to help whoever she does endorse. Then there's obviously Gavin Newsom. He may back Kounalakis to preserve dynasty. I'm trying to think, really? Backing her allows Gavin Newsom to preserve his political dynasty by ensuring a loyal successor. She served as his lieutenant governor. She shares his policy priorities too. And more importantly, she keeps his donor network and governing legacy intact while he looks towards a 2028 presidential run. The governorship will be important for the presidential primaries. The governors have a lot of sway during primaries, depending, obviously a red state governor has more sway with the Republican primary and the blue state. And that he may be looking at that a bit too. Pelosi is a player too. Sakapolo's endorsement of Kounalakis signals intent from the old guard towards her. Becerra, well, he's an influencer. He has policy currency. And he's a potential lifeline for moderates. That's how they're trying to brand him. He's another far leftist, though. So I think a lot of this stuff you're going to find on research when you read, or they're branding them a certain way. They're going to be full-fledged, hard left progressives you see, because they believe that's what they need to do to win the nomination. Then they'll move to the center. But Sarah's neither of those. He's been a leftist from his days locally here. Adam Schiff, post-Senate win. He's labeling the race wide open. He could steer some of the progressive cash and support toward Porter. He's primed to redirect donor momentum towards her. How? I don't know, but that's what the talk is. That's what word is on the street. So who are some of the Democrat spoilers? Well, there's Stephen Klubeck, 132,000 raised, zero elected experience. It's more of a vanity entry. He may split some of the moderates. For the primary, I think that's toss that out the window. But he's listed in my research as a potential Spoiler, Rick Caruso, 9% in July polling, no formal run yet. He has 100 million and he's able to self-fund. And that's from 2022. He's probably gotten richer since then. Even though he's weighing a gubernatorial bid, his stronger path will be a rematch for LA mayor with Karen Bass. He previously pulled 46% of that race, of that vote in that race, and he retains deep citywide name ID, donor access, and an unfinished narrative momentum. And with the LA wildfires, I think that would make him not a de facto lock, but it would make the race neck and neck with him having the edge this go round. So here's what I wanted to break down the Democrat field for you guys. That's who we're going to be going up against. So what about the Republican field? Can anyone crack the top two? Well, Democrats argue over donor supremacy. The GOP is just simply trying to prove it even has a statewide machine to work with. We don't. Some of the contenders, Steve Hilton. He represents mainstream CAGOP, elite and donor class revivalism. Silicon Valley ties, Fox News pedigree. He signals the establishment polish. You know, I met him briefly. You know, I'm not one of these types. Oh, I know him. I met him. You know, you shake their hands, they move on. You have a few words back and forth, and they move on to the next hand they're going to shake. You know, but he is backed by Vivek Ramaswamy, Turning Point USA, and Kevin Kiley. Doesn't matter if he's backed by those people. Unless they come in to help raise money for him, they're useless. And I do mean that. Endorsements are the most useless things you can come across for 99% of them. When I was working on a campaign and helping this woman with her campaign, she kept bragging these endorsements. So when I approached those endorsements, hey, how can we expect? What kind of help can we expect? 90% of them never return my email. Think about that. So his coalition is tech libertarians and MAGA adjacent influencers is what I came across. But the truth of the matter is he's more of a center moderate, to be kind. But when he was at the UK, he was center leftist. So I'm a little wary of him. His campaign branding is a golden again, meaning the golden state again. It leans aspirational and reformist. And he's hoping to go back to the good old days in his mind. And he's positioning himself as an electable Republican who can court independents and moderate Dems. And there may be some truth to that in this state. However, I think they are going to eat him up regardless. Somebody we know for 1,000% they're going to eat it up is Chad Bianco. He represents the grassroots law and order populism. He's anchored in Riverside County's conservative base. That's where he hails from. And he has deep ties to the sheriff network statewide. And that could help him because law and order is something all Californians want back. He's got some endorsements. And his alignment is America First populism. And his messaging hits crime, affordability, and anti-regulation. And it resonates with the working class and rural voters. He's going to have to make inroads into the urban areas. And with that being a sheriff, he's going to have to make inroads through attacking the crime and putting the blame on them. And then branding himself as, I'm an individual. He can't go independent, but he's got to go, I'm an individual. Look at me. Don't necessarily look at the party. And he casts himself as the only Republican with a proven electoral record in blue territory. Yeah, but it's small. It's sheriff's race. That's not big. So the fundraising snapshot, Steve Hilton's raised nearly $2 million. His first 10 days, he raised $1 million. You know, that was from April 22nd to May 2nd. Since then, $800,000. So his donations that come from 56 of 58 California counties. So he's making the rounds. His name recognition, his face recognition is helping them out. He's got a mix right now of not surprisingly, but he has a mix because of his Fox days of grassroots, small donor, and influencer-driven fundraising. He's got some national activation. Again, Charlie Kirk, Tim Pool, IRL, Clay Travis, and Buck Sexton. So the strategic read on him, early lag, national profiles, the strategic read here is Hilton with the national profile and Vivek Ramaswamy's backing could unlock the MAGA donor networks for him. Well, yeah, we are still, yeah. So that's Hilton. So I was correct. My mind just lost a moment there. So what I mean by early lag, you know, he's lagging behind the current candidates. He needs to get out there more. You really got to campaign every day. He does have a national profile. And again, Vivek Ramaswamy's backing could unlock the MAGA donor networks. I thought I had screwed up my notes and I was on Chad Bianco and I had not. So he's transitioning from media personality to viable statewide disruptor. Trump is more popular in this state than the media wants you to know. But the problem with that is you've got to get out to the people. And if you can get in front of their face, they will listen. The problem is most Republican candidates don't do that. Okay, so let's get to Chad Bianco. He's only raised $400,000. That's pretty weak. His base is anchored in Riverside. His entire haul of nearly $400,000, Porter's 36-hour post-Harris surge, raised almost as much as his total haul. He's lagging behind big time. Then here's an individual I met, Leo Zaki, and I kept asking him, how are you going to get the non-white crowd, man? You know, and you couldn't really answer that. I'm going to try to have him on to talk about that because he's raised $50,000, but he's self-funded. I think it's like Zach Turkey. He comes from some family that has is well off financially. So he's put in 1.3% in 2022. He really doesn't have traction, and most don't see him as viable. So how he expects to make a difference here is up in the air. But the reason he's in there is 1.3%. That's a lot when you're vying for the top two. We're not battling just ourselves. We're trying to fight to get in the top two. So that 1.3% makes a potential difference. Then there's the delta metric, which is comparative difference. Bianco has cumulative fundraising that equals Porter's 2-day digital burst. And that kind of shows where we stand with the GOP resources and our ceiling against the Democrats. And if the truth of the matter is, Hilton is doing much better, but he doesn't have a lock on the conservatives. And once all the dirt comes out, his record and what he did when he was in the UK, who is he? Who was Hilton worked for what prime minister? Blair. I want to say Blair. Tony Blair. Director of strategy for David Cameron. I'm sorry. From David Cameron from 2010 to 2012. And he was center left easily. So he's going to have to overcome that to convince conservatives here. You know, you can talk all you want, but eventually you've got to put out your policy. Yeah. So Hilton did start out with a bit of a lag when he got into it, but he easily dwarfed, and he's well ahead of Bianco. So you're going to hear screams of Bianco, get out of the race. It's Hilton's. Why? Because Hilton had the media blitz. He's got Silicon Valley ties, and he's starting to activate the MAGA adjacent donor network. I got to be honest. No Republican has my vote right now, period. I don't care who you are. You don't have my vote. You're going to have to earn it. I need to see your policies. So Steve Hilton represents the CAGOP mainstream lane. And that's why Steve Hilton doesn't have my vote right now. I have lost trust with the California Republican Party. He represents the donor class revivalism and moderate reformist energy. Again, Silicon Valley moderates. Tech backing, libertarian and influencer right circles with Vivek Ramaswamy. His messaging play, again, it's golden again, aspirational, future-facing. His launch in Huntington Beach signals a suburban swing appeal, not rural or elite. That may be a pretty good thing, though. Sick man of America metaphor positions California as ideologically and economically decaying, which we are. And it's designed to hit the disaffected independents. Now, one name I haven't mentioned, and I don't see him entering, but he said he would think about it if Kamala ran, is Rick Grenell. He represents the national GOP ballots and global credentialing. Foreign policy, Trump loyalist, national security hawk, LGBTQ right Republican crossover potential. But he said he would only enter if Harris reactivates, and she did not. He brings gravitas and elite credentials. And that's what our current batch of candidates lack. Ambassador to Germany, former acting DNI. Obviously, Chad Bianco leads the grassroots lane. He's our only grassroots person that really matters, right? Or is really visible. Law and order, populism, and regional ground game dominance. Can he expand that past one region? And that region is the Inland Empire and Riverside County Sheriff's Networks. So we're going to have to wait and see. I mean, his ground activation, 200 plus at a Riverside rally, he's got to up that outside of Riverside. But he may be able to, he probably has a template for a boots on the ground traction. And I say that because he's built the only robust infrastructure in the GOP primary right now. Hilton has no infrastructure. His messaging is Californians deserve better. And that tags emotional pain points, crime, cost of living, economic fatigue. It emphasizes protection, affordability, and anti-regulation. And that's a central voter grievance. It's going to be hard to get the anti-regulation message. You got to put it in layman terms, and you got to show how it's directly impacting. Gas is an easy one, though. So I take that back. Because all you need is one. He casts himself as a fighter candidate, a sheriff who's already winning in blue turf, frames elections as a referendum on elite mismanagement versus local resilience. And if Hilton is representing the elitism and he's not from this state originally, barely a citizen, he may be able to destroy him to the point if Hilton does get the number 2, he may destroy the candidacy in the general. So what's the current read? Hilton equals establishment lane, donor class polish, legacy media infrastructure, tech libertarian influencers, and a reformist framing for moderates. Hilton's got reach, but lacks any ground muscle. Bianco is obviously, again, the grassroots lane, boots on the ground populism, law enforcement coalition, and Trump adjacent energy. And for the record, nobody has Trump's endorsement. Bianco's got local heart, but he risks peaking. He may have already peaked. The GOP spoiler, Zach, and even Daniel Mercury, who I haven't mentioned. Low traction candidates, but between the two of them, they could take away 3% of that vote. And that 3% of that vote needs to go to either Hilton or Bianco. So they're technically on the ballot, and they will siphon slivers of GOP votes in what we know is our jungle primary, where the top 2 vote getters advance regardless of party. Now, endorsements that matter, obviously Vivek matters for fundraising for Steve Hilton. We'll see how Daryl Issa and Ken Calvert do. If they're backing Chad Bianco. Let's see. I don't know if they've come out and endorsed him yet. Yeah, they have. That's why it was in my notes. So Ken Calvert and Daryl Issa have backed Chad Bianco. I kind of find that a little odd with Issa, to be quite frank, but we'll see. 38 county sheriffs are endorsing Bianco. That's always good in the big cumulative for those who want law and order, but it's not as big as it sounds. Again, no Trump endorsement. Reform California, Carl DeMaio's group, they're proposing a unified post-primary conservative slate in order to consolidate votes and avoid jungle primary fragmentation. That's a tactical concept. It's pre-negotiate post-primary alignment across candidates to maximize turnout and present a unified front. I think Reform California is too soon, too still new. Carl's still not trusted by many. I've talked to many people. Yeah, I work with Carl. I don't like him. Don't trust him. So I think he needs to still make inroads and make greater trust for something like that to work. It's intended to reduce vote dilution and narrative clutter by rallying behind strategic matchups. The reality check, efforts have sputtered. And here's the deal. Everybody's like, what's in it for me? So, for example, if somebody goes to Chad Bianco or Hilton or whoever and say, or the Zachy, and goes, hey, we need you to drop out, they're going to go, what's in it for me? And you better be able to offer something or they won't. It's human nature. So what must Republicans fix to make themselves viable? Everything I said does not matter. Hilton will lose. Bianco will lose. Zachy will lose. Every Republican will lose unless they focus on the following. Coalition discipline. Mainstream versus grassroots versus liberty first. They've got to figure out how to cross those coalitions. Without a clear ideological architecture, the party's message reads as improvisational, not intentional. Now, the CAGOP will push that, but we've lost faith in the CAGOP because what they push is usually a Democrat-like candidate. And that's what I hope Hilton is not, but could very well be. Digital velocity, no GOP contenders can match Porter's 36-hour burst. So their reliance on offline fundraising and legacy donor chains keeps candidates slow and reactive. So in other words, they've got to get strong on the online part. They've got to get strong on the traditional fundraising as well. And they rely off the traditional fundraising, but they're not very good at it. So they've got to get better at both. And I don't know if they can. I think Hilton can with the tech side, but he has no ground machine to go talk to the voters out there. And the conservative grassroots has been ostracized by the CAGOP. He may have some difficulty getting trust from those individuals. Then you got low traction candidates like Leo Zaki and Daniel Mercuri, and they're going to siphon voters and fracture GOP in a single jungle primary. They need to get him out. They need to figure out a way to get him out. And like I said, I may try to get a couple of them on here to go, why are you doing this? This is a reality. What makes you think you're going to change it? So then the narrative cohesion, the messaging ranges from golden again, optimism, the hardline share of populism, and there's no central thread. That's nice, but you've got to get something that relates to the kitchen politics of that average Californian. And neither of those messaging mantras do. They need a value proposition that connects affordability, liberty, and institutional accountability. Y'all need our legislature to be held accountable for how the wildfires have broken out. You need to know you can have your liberty if another COVID pandemic type hits again. You need to know we're going to have your back by instituting these policies. And every one of them has to relate directly to the candidate. If they don't, they will lose. We have too much party dysfunction. Let me give you an example. I'm here in San Diego. There's chaos. The 75th chair, the county chair was ousted, then brought back in. There's been a fundraising freeze. Then endorsements ping pong. There's no structural coherence. There's nothing but structural incoherence. And what's happened? The Republican Party has miserably failed. They're not bringing in money. Reform California is getting all the money, and which does not benefit the Republican candidates or conservative candidates, only benefits who Carl DeMaio wants to see elected. So he's building his own little mini empire. I'm not saying it's a good or bad way, it's just fact. These fractures, they weaken the grassroots cohesion. And I just mentioned one county, but the counties have to be unified to support the gubernatorial candidate because it's a statewide race. So every county has to be competitive. And we're not. Now, these topics here and what the Republicans have to do to win, I'm going to do a deep dive on this in a few weeks. But this is just some of them. But in reality, I'm going to focus on the ground game and what they need to do to rebuild that. I do have a game plan in place for that. I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but I am pretty common sense driven and I know what works. And we can implement a stronger ground game, a stronger infrastructure, greater coalitions. We have a shot. We haven't been able to do that, though, since the turn of the century. The only reason Arnold won because he was a superstar in Hollywood. So what's the path forward? The GOP must rebuild grassroots networks like Bianco's. Coalition unity must center around affordability, crime, and cultural identity. Reform California's call for transparent post-primary endorsements could prevent vote splitting. It says post-primary, but I'm like pre-primary is where you need that more. You got to, before the jungle primary hits, you've got to secure all these coalitions to come together so we don't lose and we get two Democrats. Without reform, California stays blue. No GOP statewide wins since 2006, and that will continue if we don't get our act together. So Kamala's retreat isn't the story here. The scramble to replace her and who controls that future is. Porter and Kounalakis, they lead the damn money war. Caruso does loom with $100 million. no accountability to anyone, meaning he has no donor masters to answer to. He doesn't have to stick to a message that the Democrats want to control. He has no ideological guardrails, etc. However, I think he'll stay in LA for that race. But on the downside, he has no party infrastructure either. Hilton and Bianco split the GOP lanes. Both face a fractured platform and dormant coalition. The 2026 race won't just reshape California, and this is my point from the beginning. It will reveal where the ideological leftist playbook breaks heading into 2028. And my point being is, what works and doesn't work here from a Democrat leftist standpoint will be looked at and seeing, can we take this on a national level? All right, let's get to the Cali Blitz, my friends. That is the fired up California lightning round. Federal blowback, UCLA funding suspended over anti-Semitism violations. So the Trump administration has halted $200 million in federal research grants to UCLA. Why? Well, the DOJ investigation revealed the university failed to protect Jewish students during 2024's anti-Israel campus riot. Democrats call it unrest. I call them riots. 2024 UCLA sanctioned, let me repeat, sanctioned a militant encampment featuring metal barricades and activist patrols that blocked Jewish students from supporting Israel, assaulted journalists and bystanders, and created a hostile environment that persisted until a mob finally dismantled it. It took one mob to take out another mob. So, California, one of California's favorite conservative children, Attorney General Harmeet Dillon found, quote, deliberate indifference by UCLA that violated Title VI of the Civil Rights Act, the 14th Amendment. And this was followed, or they followed UCLA's settlement of a related lawsuit filed by Jewish students. They had no choice but to settle. We all saw it. The evidence is the videos. Now, UCLA Chancellor Julio Frank said this is going to impact them on the National Science Foundation, the National Institute of Health, and other agencies. So what? This is a watershed moment to enforce Title VI protections, to finally confront campus anti-Semitism that hides behind activism. Look, without hard consequences, these hostile 2024 encampments would have metastasized, and they will continue down the road. This precedent now signals a clear, zero-tolerance enforcement. Moving forward, we know the federal government is keeping an eye, unless it's a Democrat presidency. But even then, president will have been set with this. And civilians, as we saw with the one lawsuit, will begin suing again. So the days of allowing anti-Semitism may finally be over on UCLA's campus. And I agree with Pam Bondi, warning of a, quote, heavy price, unquote, to pay. And that's good for conservatism. It's good for our American values. And it's good to be free in terms of being able to walk around without worrying about getting attacked. And let's not forget, college campuses were once a beacon of free speech, of debate. Today's leftists do not want that. They want to indoctrinate. And if you go against that, they will allow the mob to attack you. Hopefully that is no more. All right. Cali Blitz number 2, state pushback versus federal crackdown. Gender-affirming care showdown. California Attorney General Rob Bonta. He's joined 14 other states and DC and filed suit against a January 2025 Trump executive order. So the order bans federal funding for gender-affirming care for individuals under 19. It threatens medical institutions with funding laws if they provide those services. In July 2025, these attorney generals and Bonta decided to sue. Now, Pam Bondi announced why they're suing, because Pam Bondi announced that subpoenas of 20 plus providers for alleged healthcare fraud related to gender-affirming care were being sought. And this is what triggered the lawsuit by Bonta and others. The subpoena likely demanded sensitive patient records and they scrutinized treatment practices. It probably created widespread fear of criminal charges and federal funding cuts. So they just said, we're not going to do it. They didn't want to risk having to give up patient records, and they did not want to risk more cuts. Children's Hospital of Los Angeles closed its gender-affirming care center. Oh, yeah, it was a cash center. 3,000 patients under 21. Stanford Medicine and Kaiser Permanente paused surgeries for minors. These are surgeries that cannot be undone. Providers are making preemptive moves to avoid further federal action. My take, it's simple. The prefrontal cortex, people, which is key to decision-making, that's not fully developed until about 25. So there are 10 zillion ethical flags around irreversible medical choices before adulthood. My point is, when a leftist says, or a leftist parent says, oh, my child knew at age 3 they were transgender. No, they did not. No, they did not. My proof, there's social contagion, bullying, anxiety or depression, body image distortions, or sexuality confusion that pushes these kids to say that. An example, put into real life, in 2022, there was Spreckles Union School District case. A mother won a $100,000 settlement because teachers were covertly convincing her 11-year-old daughter she was transgender. There was another case, I can't remember, where the counselors were found guilty. They weren't found guilty, but during the cross-examination, they were found to have coerced the students to sit there and say the parents or these adults were doing this to them. So this is common knowledge and has been, the evidence is out there, has been documented. So that's why I'm like, don't believe these people. This is a good thing. This protects our children. Plus, gender-affirming surgeries and puberty blockers, as I already said, there's no reversing them. Sterility, loss of bone density, and lifelong medical dependencies. So this is beyond politics. This raises urgent human rights concerns. These are human right abuses, human rights atrocities. Cali Blitz number 3. The court limits ICE raids in LA. Probable cause now required. Probable cause was always required. They're saying it's not. So a federal appeals court affirmed the lower court's order limiting ICE arrests in LA to those with specific probable causes, barring reliance on factors like appearance or language. So this ruling bars ICE arrests based on race, occupation, or speaking Spanish, requiring specific probable cause instead of generalized suspicion. Look, to me, this is judicial activism. They were following the law. The ruling does not ban workplace raids. It forces agents to meet a higher arrest threshold, but doesn't invalidate deportation. This is nothing but judicial activism stalling the execution of the Trump administration's immigration mandate. Illegal immigration ranked number 1 or number 2, depending on what state you were at, and why people voted for Trump. When it wasn't number 1, it was the economy was number 1. This will wind up at SCOTUS, I guarantee you. Moving on, the California exodus, wealth, workforce, and corporations on the move. So California is witnessing a massive outmigration of residents and businesses to low-tax states like Texas. And according to a 2024 Allied U.S. migration report that just came out and U-Haul's January 2024 update, 362,000 residents and $21 billion in income have gone to Texas since 2020. Our state, California, ranked number 1 in outbound migration. Under Gavin Newsom, nearly 700,000 people have left the state post-2020, driven by high energy costs, punitive taxation, crushing regulation, a notoriously hostile climate for businesses. There's historical context for this. In 2010, Texas added 163,000 jobs and landed 424 corporate projects. California, by comparison, lost 1.2 million jobs and attracted only 127 projects. This is a big time imbalance. My take, this updates my recent podcast, actually from last week, where I pointed out 1.6 million tax-paying Californians and over 300 corporations are fleeing hostile conditions. It validates the scope. 360,000 residents, 21 billion in income. This won't stop until the CAGOP abandons tech-only optics and returns to foundational campaigning to win back seats. we got to walk, we got to talk, and we got to activate our messaging in blue districts, and we got to pair that with technology. The real indictment here isn't policy failure, it's strategic paralysis. So why hasn't the CAGOP seized this migration? Well, it's because they don't care about messaging to middle class and building coalitions in blue districts. And there you have it, my friends. There's more to talk about, but I want to keep this tight for y'all. So I will provide a clip. Look for it this week. And I talk about the NPR, PBS, where I talk about the zoning laws that are under fire, the Palo Alto case. So stay tuned for that. And I hope you have enjoyed this episode. Look, I covered a failed recall. Oh, I'm sorry. I covered Kamala being out and the governor's race just blowing out wide open. The Cali Blitz, I hope you enjoy some of the short stories, the ICE raids, the Trump lawsuits. But before we go, make sure you hit like or thumbs up and share this podcast. Then bookmark grumblingsmedia.com and follow us on YouTube, Rumble, Apple, and Spotify under the profile Grumblings Media. Until next week, this is William Del Pilar for Fired Up California. And stay safe, my friends.
Hey everybody, this is Big John from Grumblings Media, and I just want to say thank you for watching our content. If you want to support our efforts here at Grumblings Media, just smash the subscribe button right here, totally free, or just go ahead and consume more of our great content. Click either one of these two boxes.